Gale's had this devastating all within himself the entire time, and only just mentioned it.
Who'd keep a secret like that from his friends? You can't trust anyone these days.
So Gale's been walking around this whole time with some sort of magic bomb in his chest. I'm not normally one to begrudge someone their secrets, but that's something I should know.
And with those comments about Gale revealing the disturbing truth about his condition, welcome back to Baldur's Gate 3. My name is Pete, and today we complete another episode of this Honor Mode walkthrough with our Dark Urge Halfling Bard, Sylvia Hairyfoot. Last time we left off, after entering the Shattered Sanctum's walk pens, we briefly got ourselves imprisoned to unlock the Escapologist achievement, and then fought a group of goblins to free the Emerald Grove's first druid Halsin. We learned more about the Illithid tadpoles and their suspected origins at Moonrise Towers, and were subsequently tasked with eliminating the rest of the goblin leadership. For the time being, though, we only took out a few smaller groups of goblins and then returned to camp to find Volo alive and healthy, who performed a quick inspection on us before we then learned the aforementioned truth about Gale's condition. You can also see on the left that I've made some party changes. We are now running with Lae'zel, Shadowheart and Astarion, and we are also not yet taking the short rest I promised we would take at the end of the last episode. For now, we'll just keep exploring the Shattered Sanctum, where we will now encounter the Goblins' second leader, Dror Ragzlin.
I command you, corpse. Speak. Reveal truth to the Absolute.
By Vlaakith's blade, a geich.
Nothing. Must be reading it wrong. Suga no Shukok.
The hobgoblin turns to you, and the parasite squirms in your skull. You taste the ale on his tongue, and the bile in his soul. The visions cloud your inner eye for a brief moment once again. You see the hobgoblin bowing before the armored elf you'd glimpsed before. The elf speaks of the hunt for a great weapon, and the rewards that will go to whoever finds it. The hobgoblin's eyes gleam hungrily.
Well, look here. A true soul halfling. A long way from home, aren't you?
He doesn't speak his next words, yet they still rattle your skull from within.
You ever talk to a dead squid? Now's your chance.
Right, and just like with Priestess Gut earlier, we of course do not want to attack right away. Instead, before we do anything here, let's study the Mind Flayer corpse and find out just how familiar the Illithid actually is.
This Mind Flayer's build is smaller, its garb plainer. A fearsome creature even in death, but not the one that tormented you. Yet it too roamed the Nautiloid. It would have seen you, known you.
Absolute says the dead squiddy had a weapon. I reckon the killer nabbed it and scooted off to that looter camp. We find who killed it, and we find who took that weapon. So settle in.
You feel Shadowheart's anxiety. The weapon the Absolute seeks. It's the artifact that she carries. The same one that protected you as you entered the goblin camp. Her mind focuses. Their suspicion cannot be aroused. They cannot discover that the weapon they seek is within their grasp.
Right, so unless we want to provoke a fight, it seems like the smart move to participate in the ritual, and we do in fact have some experience in speaking with the dead, so let's offer our help.
Then take it. Absolute knows I'm not getting anywhere.
You read aloud the words on the scroll. The hideous corpse rises, tentacles writhing.
Now, once more, our main goal here is to not arouse suspicion. So, since we know that we were not the ones who killed the Mind Flayer, we can safely ask about who it was.
The creature responds, not in words, but memories. You see a clawed hand open a holding pod, devoid of flesh. Only darkness.
Damn it. I saw it too, and it tells me nothing.
Now, while we didn't learn the killer's identity, maybe asking about their motives helps. Even though, and I find this a bit confusing to be honest, it is not actually quite clear what Dror Ragzlin himself wants to learn from the corpse.
Ragzlin's mind is clouded by doubt, surprised by words he didn't expect. Again, visions flow through you. A swarm of Githyanki dragon riders, silver blades held high, control panels melting, flesh pods spilled open.
Gith on the hunt. They know something.
Suspicion floods Ragzlin's mind. Your brain howls as you consider your final question.
So this is what I meant earlier. I'm not quite sure why this question made him suspicious. Anyway, in order to avoid arousing further suspicion, we should probably not ask about the Absolute here, so let's opt for more info on the Gith instead.
You see dark tunnels lit by noxious pools of brine. The darkness spreads through the earth. The sky splits open and nautiloids pour out of a void that consumes the stars.
What in the...
The corpse collapses, silent once more.
No, we're not done! Riddles, all of it, and nothing to show for the trouble but rotting squid meat. No answers, no killer, and no damned weapon. That damned drow was right. Can't let her get all of that glory. Seems I ain't done with you. Report to the drow. Minthara's the name. She's mounting an attack on that blasted grove. Tell her you'll join her.
Right, and once again, we want to do as he says here. We may be a true soul just like him, but alienating him could cause a fight, and if we need to have one, then I'd prefer to do so on our terms.
Praise the Absolute.
No prizes for guessing what this weapon thereafter really is. The artifact.
If that's the case, we've got more problems than just the worms in our heads.
Indeed we do, but for the moment we have gained an inspiration with Astarion, as we successfully avoided arousing Ragzlin's suspicion.
Listen, the Absolute honors you and slays her enemies. She'll fertilize the fields with the dead. Rivers and streams will flow with their blood. Their cities will be razed to the ground. And they'll know she is Absolute. You'll sit at her table. You'll drink from her barrels. You will reign.
Following Ragzlin's little speech, we can now also speak to the assembled goblins, although they won't have that much to say.
Dror Ragzlin's a true soul. Oh, look at him, eh?
Boss put you to work, huh?
Boss!
True soul, eh? I figured the Absolute had standards.
I'll do what he says. Ain't want to make the boss any madder than he already is.
And, well, speaking of that boss, since we did not initiate combat, he too has a few more things to say.
What you needing now?
Well, for starters, let's inquire about this strange alliance between the goblins and Minthara, who, as we've learned, is a drow.
The Absolute's got room for everyone, long as you don't defy her. And nobody's that stupid. If the Absolute says to take orders from a drow, then we toe the mark. No questions.
So, blind obedience it seems, and we have one more question. Apart from Priestess Gut, is there anyone here who can heal?
You look spiffy to me. What do you need a healer for?
Well, it is very likely not a great idea to share the entire truth here. So let's just say we're still recruiting. Maybe that convinces him.
Well, let me know when you find one. Priestess Gut's better at causing pain than curing it.
Alright, and with that we can now leave the conversation, but not the area. As you may have noticed, there are 2 people here who are distinctly not goblins.
That was intense. I wouldn't want to bump into that thing while it was still alive.
And we wouldn't want to hint at the fact that we did, so let's instead ask about what it's like to work with the goblins.
Someone needs to keep an eye on these buggers. I don't make a habit of questioning the absolute. Now quiet!
Alright, and next to the human we also have a drow roaming around.
I wouldn't dawdle if I were you. I doubt true soul Minthara has much patience left.
Well, it seems like all roads lead towards Minthara. Sooner or later though, we definitely want to crack open this gate here, a big pile of treasure hidden behind it. For now though, we do as Dror Ragzlin and the drow commanded us to. The path to Minthara leads us across the spider pit here, but before we get to her, we encounter an interesting entity.
The scrying eye. Best not do anything suspicious while it's watching.
Indeed, this floating eye is essentially a floating magical camera, capable even of seeing through invisibility, resistant to almost all types of damage, and apparently a nuisance to this goblin here in particular.
You see that eye what's it floating about? Best hope it don't take a fancy to ya. Unless you like playing hide and seek when you're trying to take a damp.
Right, so he seems a bit on edge, and understandably so. Maybe he can tell us a bit more about this floating orb.
It's a floating eye, mate. What do you reckon? Bloody spying on us. The bigwigs at Moonrise like to be involved, the drow says. Load of trollop. Just don't trust us to do what we do best. Killing things. Bloody hell! Leave me alone!
Right, and with that, I think it's time that we get to know Minthara.
What are we waiting for? Spears are sharp. The lads are all riled up and ready.
You have already failed me once. And now you dare to question me.
I didn't mean nothing by it, your ladyship. Honest, I didn't.
Life, much like your words, is meaningless, whelp. End the latter to save the former.
The village to the east. It's abandoned.
Looks that way. But scouts said they heard something moving around out there. Something big.
It's not our concern. Our prey is elsewhere. How many raiders do we have?
Plenty of lashers, loads of hunters, and a few pariahs to carry the powder kegs.
These pariahs, they're prepared to fight for the Absolute?
What they do ain't exactly fighting. All they gotta do is light up a powder and burn.
Then they're prepared to die for the Absolute. Good.
Dying's the only thing they're good at.
So, I think it seems clear that Minthara is the strategic mind behind this entire operation. You may have also noticed already that she's not only accompanied by a single goblin, but by 2 of them, the other one being Sazza, which should hopefully make our entry into this conversation a bit smoother.
Mistress! It's me, your loyal servant, Sazza. I'm back, and I brought a friend.
How thoughtful. And where did you find this friend?
They was in some rickety druid grove, mostly full of tieflings, but them intruders you're after were hiding out there.
I presume you dealt with my prey and massacred the rest?
Well, the thing about that is, they sort of massacred us. This mug helped me escape, though. I say we stick a few holes in her, show how grateful we are.
You feel a cold hand caress your mind as the drow praises you.
Oh dear. Your prisoner is one of the Absolute's favorites, Sazza. A true soul.
Nah, it can't be. They was in the grove, hanging around with the tieflings.
Undercover, no doubt. Carrying out the Absolute's will. Oh, Sazza, you have made a grave error. And it will be your last. My spiders are hungry, little one. But before they feast, tell me where that grove is. And I may yet spare your life.
It's past the bridge, to the east. Big old gate covered in ivy. Don't hurt me, mistress, please.
I will not hurt you. My spiders will have that pleasure.
No, I'm mucked up, I'm sorry. but I didn't know who they was. They didn't tell me nothing.
Now, even though it will cost us a minor approval penalty, we want to make sure to protect Sazza here. Eventually, we will earn an achievement for doing so, and this is a completionist playthrough. So, let's state that she is telling the truth and really didn't know anything.
I told ya, I was trying to follow orders best I could.
Silence, wretch. And remember, you owe your miserable life to this one.
I won't cause any more trouble. I swears it.
Through sheer luck, that pathetic worm has brought me the information I need. And it seems that the inhabitants of the Grove trust you. We can use that against them. You have a part to play in this slaughter.
Return to the Grove. When my raiding party approaches, throw open the gate and signal me.
The fate of the Grove's inhabitants hangs in the balance. Killing the drow here would spare them, but it might be better to face her warband at the Grove itself, on familiar ground. On the other hand, participating in the slaughter as she asks may be the perfect way to earn her trust and access to the cult's inner circle.
Right, so this here is arguably Act 1's biggest decision, and it only took us 25 episodes to get there. Once again, we do not want to launch into combat right away. However, we also don't want to agree to the raid, so let's try to keep ourselves out of the entire thing altogether.
I do not intend to lead a suicidal charge. The goblins are expendable. I am not. The Absolute brought you here for a reason. To throw open those gates and crush our enemies.
Right, so it seems like Minthara does not accept no for an answer, but how about later? A dialogue option I highly recommend taking here, as it is the only one that allows for a second conversation with her afterwards.
Take care of it, quickly. You are needed here, and my patience wears thin. Get out of my sight.
So here we are. Crucially, none of the important actors have moved anywhere else, and we also have not entered combat. And for escorting Sazza back to the goblin camp and ensuring that she does not come to harm here, we are also rewarded with the Assassin's Touch, a +1 dagger that deals an extra d4 necrotic damage to targets that are sleeping or unconscious. Moderately useful, I would say. In any case, we did all of this to ensure that we can speak to Minthara again, so let us now do exactly that.
The goblins tell me that you extracted a confession from our prisoner. True so.
Without your help, they would have extracted nothing but screams and blood.
It is time for the raid to begin. The Grove and those who are hiding there will fall. There is a weapon the Absolute seeks. I'm sure those wretches have it hidden away there. We will find it amongst the dead and the ashes.
Her excitement is palpable. She lingers on thoughts of victory, of unbelievers' blood spilled, and of the weapon. She will seize it, in the Absolute's name.
Go to their refuge, and make your way inside. As a friend.
So, not only do we get praise for a confession that we didn't actually extract, we also get to learn more about Minthara's plans for the attack on the Druid Grove.
I will gather a raiding party and move into position. You will open the gates from the inside when the time is right to strike. We will cleanse the place of infidels and burn it to the ground in the Absolute's name. And then we will be the first among her favorites.
The masterful painting she depicts of the massacre awakens you hungrily.
Now, by simply opting to reject these thoughts, we do not commit either way, and, well, up until now at least, we did have the best interests of the Druid Grove at heart.
The Absolute brought you here for a reason. To throw open those gates so we can crush our enemies.
Now at this point we can also ask her about safe passage to Moonrise Towers in exchange for our help. Unfortunately though, she does not really reveal that much more about what's going on there.
Yes, I suppose I might offer you passage. But first, you will raise the Grove and honor our mistress.
One final path to follow then before we make a decision. Let's ask about a reward for our services.
You are honored to serve a cause, a god. You will earn her love and the power that flows from that love. What greater reward could there be?
Well, from her perspective, she's got a point and we're not going to press any further. I'm not 100% sure, but this might preserve our option to use the favorable beginnings bonus on her later, which we do intend to make use of, even though we are now agreeing to help her.
Praise be to her. I will gather my warband and reach the grove by next light. You must make your way inside. Once I am in position, on your signal, we break them.
And when they are dead, the Absolute will reward your faith. As will I. For the Absolute.
The Raiders. It is yes, your leadership. We won't let you down.
Right, now at this point, Minthara begins to gather her raiding party, and you might rightfully ask yourselves what the hell we just committed ourselves to. Now, don't worry, I have no intentions of letting Minthara and the goblins slaughter the druid grove. In fact, keeping all of the tieflings inside the grove alive is a requirement for another elusive achievement, so why then agree to the raid? Well, let's loot the place, which is no longer being watched, and I'll explain. Essentially, it boils down to two things: full completion and maximum challenge. I just feel like this conflict between the Cult of the Absolute and the Emerald Grove demands a fitting finale, and a big final confrontation at the gates of the Grove just fits that role much better than us sneakily slaughtering all three leaders and being done with it all. The water sparklers here, by the way, a pair of boots interacting with the lightning charges mechanic, potentially useful for Gale, but also rather situational. Now, I have of course willingly accepted that in order to show you this final confrontation at the Grove, a few of the goals that I had set myself for this part of the story have suddenly become a lot more difficult. The goal is of course, and has always been, to side with the inhabitants of the Grove, a grove that we will now need to defend without suffering a single tiefling casualty. If we lose just a single one, we will void a very important achievement, so it will be tricky, but I think it's doable. I think we'll talk a bit more about that once we get to the actual raid. For now, looting this area here is almost complete. Apart from the boots we picked up earlier, the most notable items are probably the Scroll of Blur and the healing potion. But there's also some goblin poetry here, if that's what floats your boat. Finally, we pick up and read a chapter on Paladin Oathbreakers, which is notable for more than just its contents. This is actually book number 100 we've read in this playthrough, unlocking the Bookworm achievement. Now, I know that I may not have shown you the contents of every single one of those on screen, but they are all there, sitting neatly in the chest inside our camp. Now at this point, let's also swiftly get rid of the scrying eye. Simply shoving it into the chasm here usually works well. Meanwhile, because of its damage resistances, trying to attack it is usually a futile endeavor. And with that, we now make our way back to the entrance of the Shattered Sanctum, where Minthara has gathered her goblin commanders to give them final instructions before setting off.
When we reach the grove, you charge only on my command.
This is the big one, lads!
No,
and I'll get more kills than any of you!
For the Absolute!
And there they go, and with that, the raid on the Emerald Grove is officially going to happen, a development that would probably also interest the druid Halsin, who is, by the way, still patiently waiting inside the walk pens. Our quest now also officially updates to inform him of these developments. Before we do though, I think it's time we kill some goblins. These 6 guards by the entrance here are nice and isolated and shouldn't be too difficult to deal with. We've got our entire party hidden and shovel invisible, and we've got high ground advantage against 4 of the 6. This is now the moment where we want to take a short rest, and then we begin things with an offhand crossbow shot from Sylvia.
Your actions have consequences.
Please forgive me for overly eagerly clicking away the narration here. The end result is the same. We are now in combat and Sylvia is once more first in the initiative. However, she's also the only one for now. Let's change that, as Lae'zel can now strike from stealth. Alright, and it looks like the others didn't even notice, so we might as well have her strike again. With her still moving out of sight, we might be able to repeat this. And indeed, there we go, that's 2 enemies down and Lae'zel still has not entered the initiative yet. I think that is about to change now though. The goblin's 23 hit points here and her moving through their clear line of sight will make sure of that. Alright, 19 points of damage, almost taking the goblin down. Time for a slashing flourish from Sylvia to take care of the 2 upstairs. Okay, 21 points of damage against the enemy on the left here for the instant kill. I had not expected that. Let's see if Shovel can remove another goblin from the battlefield. And she can, leaving us only with 2, both of them already injured. And we're looking to make it 1 now, as Astarion moves up to the high ground to negate the aim penalty. A sneak attack and 8 remaining hit points should make this a guaranteed kill. Well, I have to say, what a waste of a critical hit for 31 points of damage here. Time to use a dash now, which also activates Wrath as part of the linebreaker boots he's wearing. With 3 turns remaining on the condition, that means a +3 bonus to melee damage now. So let's use his second bonus action for an offhand attack against the last remaining enemy. That hits and also applies the Ruptured condition from the Hunter's Dagger. That condition will deal extra damage should our target move, most likely though it won't if Shadowheart can hit the 91%er. Well, she can, but the goblin remains standing with 2 hit points. Good thing that Lae'zel gets to attack twice per action now. Hopefully she can finish this.
Try something else.
And of course she misses, but luckily we still have the Pommel Strike, which hits, but only for 1 point of damage, so this goblin here is proving to be a tougher nut to crack than anticipated. But we have a few aces still left up our sleeve. Let's begin with Shadowheart's Ensnaring Strike, given to her because she carries the Woodward Shield. And of course the goblin saves against that too and takes no damage, which unfortunately leaves us with no other choice but to action search with Lae'zel, an ability I really would have liked to save up for the next fight. Then again, I simply couldn't take the risk of suffering any damage here, and as you can see we didn't, so let us now swiftly loot some bodies. These 6 goblins don't really have anything particularly interesting on them. Standard weapons and some equipment. We will likely end up selling most of it. Once we've grabbed everything, we head back through the Shattered Sanctum's main hall. Once more, the goblins in here are completely oblivious to our deeds on the other side of the door, and those deeds now demand a follow-up. However, this time Sylvia does not get to participate. With her safely tucked around the corner, the rest of our party can now enter the bloodied shrine. We will have Astarion hide over in the corner here, and then we target the 2 goblins from the prison cell with a big nice cleave. The one who already took damage from Abdirek's pain ritual is killed immediately, while the other one is reduced to half health, and Lae'zel can strike once more. Let's make this a menacing attack for a bit more damage. And there we go, 2 more goblins dead, and Abdirek does not seem to care in the slightest.
Yes, I must try this technique, or perhaps this one.
You can probably also see already why we kept Sylvia out of this fight. The dead torturer Spike can be talked to, but only if he does not recognize Sylvia as his killer.
The corpse regards you lifelessly.
So let's ask our questions, and since we have a pretty good idea of who this guy was, let's start with some info on the Absolute.
Speaks through true souls. Scour the land. Find weapon.
Alright, nothing we haven't learned yet, so let's continue with treasure. Maybe there's something we haven't found yet.
Bushes outside. Kids were playing.
And since we collected everything in that area already, let us now get to the more personal stuff.
Born here. Stay here.
The question about purpose, then perhaps a bit much for a goblin, but who knows, he might just surprise us.
Gold. Blood. Absolute's blessing.
Well, no surprises here, I would say. So for the final question, is there anything else he can tell us?
Crush, smash, burn, whip, scream. Give pain, get answer.
The corpse does not stir. It will answer no more questions.
Alright, no groundbreaking information from this one, so let's keep going, and let's quickly take care of the isolated Gribbo right outside the room. This prompts a curious reaction from Abdirak, who didn't really mind when we killed the two goblins right under his nose a few moments ago, and who thankfully also does not do anything to investigate this death. So let us move on back into the main hall, where we can find Sazza once more, likely very happy that she's still alive.
Those teeth. Those horrible teeth. Take this. It's everything I've got. I won't try and get you killed again. Promise. Just let me go.
Now, of course, we fully intend on doing so, but not before asking her a few questions.
I tell you anything, and my life ain't worth a rat's breakfast.
Now, understandably, she's hesitant, but we're pretty good at this whole persuasion thing, not to mention that with a DC of only 5 here, she doesn't seem to put up too much resistance.
Dunno, never repaid anything. But you've been square with me, true? What do you want to know?
Now, there's only 2 questions we can ask here, both of them relating to treasure. Let's begin with Priestess Gut's chapel first.
She's got all kinds of booyarg. Sickly tasting stuff. Might make your limbs grow back, but it's as sour as a bugbear's whittle.
This can be useful information if you obtain it prior to speaking to Gut, but what about the rest of the area?
I saw Dror Ragzlin stash some stuff behind the waterfall, near the bridge. You want it? It's yours. It's all yours. Is that it? Can I go?
And since we also collected that treasure already and looted a +1 great axe from it, she is now free to go. Once again, we need her to survive through all of this to unlock another achievement. Now, there is one more goblin here that we want to speak to at this point. It is Warlock Grease, who, after the death of Priestess Gut, fills a very special role. Let's speak to him and find out more.
Ain't polite to stare, Wormwalt. If you ain't got the guts to get branded, clear off.
Now, we could immediately put him in check here and show him our brand. Then again, let's use this opportunity to learn what this brand actually means to the goblins.
Ain't just a mark on the flesh. It's magic. Only them what follows the Absolute can see it. Lets us know you're on our side. That way, nobody will mess with you.
Now, I'm pretty sure this option here is not labeled properly. In any case, using it will have Sylvia show off her brand.
Oof, Priestess got you good. That's a lovely bit of work. Praise the Absolute.
Now, so much for that, but why is this guy so important? Well, if we now speak to him with a different character, then we get the option to now have that character get branded, even with Priestess Gut already dead. And despite the fact that both Shadowheart and Astarion himself get minor one-time penalties for this, we now want to get our entire party branded.
Happy to oblige.
So that's the Absolute's brand now applied to our entire party. As you can see, that party has also changed once more, and so has Lae'zel's equipment, who is now wearing the Gloves of Power, and after being branded, she can now use them fully, applying Absolute's Bane to any enemy she hits, possibly inflicting a 1d4 penalty to attack rolls and saving throws. You can also see that she carries a ton of equipment that we have no use for, so up next we'll stop by Halfling trader Roa Moonglow.
Ah, the family friend. Need something?
And what we need is gold for all of those goblin bows and scimitars, a grand total of 509 to be precise. At this point then it's time to return to Dror Ragzlin. Killing any goblins in the halfling's vicinity is not recommended, as that could turn Roa Moonglow and her associates hostile, and we definitely do not want that. Now, before we focus on Ragzlin and his goblin minions, we first of all want to pick off the human and the drow that both hang out in this area. To that end, we sneak up with Astarion and wait until our first target is in position, then we enter turn-based mode and launch a sneak attack. We only have 7 hit points to deal with. immediately after the kill earns us 1 meager experience point we run. Let's go all the way back here, where we already killed some goblins last episode. We should be safe here from Ragzlin's followers who now come over to investigate. Eventually then, the suspicion level dies down again and the goblins go back to their usual routines, and with that we can prepare for the second strike. Once more we are using Astarion for this, but this time we loop over to the right side. A pair of heavy oak doors is blocking the path here, but we can easily pick them open and this is not considered a transgression, so possibly these doors were already locked prior to the goblins' arrival. Moving in, we then once again want to stay out of the goblin's line of sight, and we want to wait for the drow over here to move, and as soon as she walks across the wooden bridge here, we want to enter turn-based mode. With a simple shot from Astarion's bow, we can then destroy the support, and since this is turn-based mode, the kill is not yet official, so we can safely double dash to get away from the crime scene, so the goblins will be none the wiser as another follower of the Absolute suffers an early demise. Astarion rejoins the party, and once more the crime scene may be investigated, but the criminal will be nowhere to be found. And so Dror Ragzlin eventually sits back down on his throne. Now only him and 5 goblins are left, and to them we are still only harmless followers of the Absolute, so we are safe to roam around and have all the time we need to put our party in position. And for Will, that position is actually high up top on another wooden beam running across the room, a fantastic spot not only to launch an ambush, but also to protect your party from the various melee enemies in the group. Now, with everyone in position, we want to take another short rest here, although this is not strictly necessary. I'm really only doing it to refresh Lae'zel's action surge, which will in just a moment hopefully allow us to unlock another achievement. For now though, we enter turn-based mode and begin with Sylvia casting a harmless minor illusion right next to the dead Mind Flayer here. This will get our enemies nice and clustered together, and you might already be able to see where this is going. I also decided to dash with Astarion here to activate the Linebreaker boots, but technically we're not yet in combat, so unfortunately no bonus melee damage. And so all that is left for us to do at this point is to end our turn. Hopefully the goblins and Dror Ragzlin will react the way we want them to. And well, at least some of them do. They could have clustered a bit tighter, I think. At this point though, we also take note of the fact that with the beginning of a new turn, Dror Ragzlin gains a legendary action. Unsurprisingly, this guy is very much a boss-level enemy, a barbarian to be precise, and while we have certainly faced tougher opponents, letting him get any attacks in is really not a good idea, because he can strike twice per turn and he hits pretty damn hard. So let's make sure he doesn't get to, and that is why we have Will up here. Unfortunately, the fireball here will not be able to hit all 6 enemies, but that's okay. Blasting Ragzlin and 4 goblins is a decent start to this, I think. Let's see how many of those goblins survive the attack. Alright, lovely. We couldn't have hoped for a better outcome. 2 enemies are already dead, and we have gained surprise. The 2 surviving goblins are heavily injured too, and Ragzlin has also lost 30 hit points already. And, perhaps most crucially, none of our other party members have officially entered the initiative yet. Now, let's see if Shovel can't dispatch of the 2 hit points remaining on this guy. And she can, and that brings it down to 3 enemies. And not only that, despite standing right in front of Dror Ragzlin, she has not entered combat. Like I said, the stealth mechanics remain a mystery even to me. In any case, this allows us to turn her invisible again and to strike a second time. This time it's not quite enough damage for the kill, but Shovel is now officially in combat. Sylvia, meanwhile, is not, and will therefore now summon our emergency backup, Mayrina's undead zombie husband Connor, just in case Ragzlin survives our onslaught and gets to attack after all. In that case, Connor could then tank some hits for us. With Sylvia herself then, we focus on the goblins for now. Despite being outside of her normal range, the attack here has a 95% hit chance. Let's see if a bonus action can get us the kill. Beautiful. Just like that, we only have one goblin and Ragzlin himself left. Let's move up a bit and then launch a slashing flourish to hopefully remove that goblin too. Alright, and now only Dror Ragzlin remains standing, and Lae'zel and Astarion have both not gone yet. Killing all the goblins first has also conveniently removed any enemy from the battlefield who could watch Ragzlin's behind, which means Lae'zel can now easily sneak up on the hobgoblin, and we're going to open things up here with a trip attack. It's unlikely to succeed, but if it does, we get advantage on all subsequent attacks. Alright, 19 points of damage, Ragzlin is baned, but still standing. But of course we're not done yet. Let's strike a second time, trip attack attempt number 2. That's a further 19 points of damage, and this is why we took the short rest earlier. We can now action surge and launch Lae'zel's third attack. That unfortunately misses, but no worries, we can simply try again. This time we deal 22 points of damage, leaving Ragzlin standing with only 7 hit points. Let's follow up with a pommel strike, which misses, but nonetheless unlocks the action surge achievement, as Lae'zel did just perform 5 attacks in one turn, and the achievement thankfully does not care about whether or not all of them hit. That way she single-handedly also dealt 60 points of damage, leaving Astarion with the rather trivial task of removing the remaining 7.
There's an illithid parasite in that corpse. You should take a look.
And of course, no surprise here, Ragzlin also infected with a Mind Flayer tadpole, and ironically, just like with the Dead Mind Flayer earlier, we can use our Speak with Dead spell on him. By the way, you can also use that on the Dead Mind Flayer if you did not use it during the first encounter with Ragzlin. After the hobgoblin is dead, you get to ask the Mind Flayer a few more questions. The answers, however, are really not all that illuminating, so personally I do not consider this to be worthwhile. Now, having grabbed all the gear from the fallen minions, we can focus our attention on Ragzlin himself. He carries a scroll, a key that will be important in a minute, Faithbreaker, a +1 warhammer, and the aforementioned Mind Flayer parasite. And while we could now give Sylvia another tadpole power, we won't. Instead, let us speak to the dead Dror Ragzlin.
The corpse regards you lifelessly.
Somewhat disappointingly, there is only one single question we can ask. Why is the Absolute so interested in the tiefling fugitives?
Eternal glory, ours.
Now there can be more questions here if you don't already get the answers to them through regular dialogue, but since we already inquired about a healer in Minthara and also found Halsin, there is nothing more that Ragzlin can tell us. So let's grab a second scroll of Speak with Dead and then put a crossbow bolt into Ragzlin's throne, just for good measure, before we then head back upstairs and use his key to unlock the treasure chamber. Unsurprisingly, from this big pile of goods we can collect a few rather valuable items. The Amulet of Selûne's Chosen, for example, allows its wearer to cast a new cantrip, and this is a healing cantrip, and I cannot stress just how powerful that is, so understandably it comes with the downside of possibly putting the target to sleep. There's also a piece of infernal iron and the gloves of the growling underdog, advantage on melee attacks if you're surrounded by at least 2 enemies. The spring step boots then give their wearer momentum if they dash in combat, and on top of all that we also find a big pile of gold and some gemstones. Back outside the chamber then, the crates and barrels here promise more riches. Lots and lots of camp supplies can be found inside of them. Not that we don't already have plenty, but who knows how many more long rests we'll need to take, and during our potentially upcoming journey to the Moonrise Towers we might also not get spoiled that much. Now next to these camp supplies there are also 2 smoke powder barrels in this area, and we want to pick up both of them too and transfer them to camp. They could come in handy in the not so distant future. Then we climb back up to the scaffolding above Ragzlin's throne room, where another very well hidden treasure chest rewards us with some magical arrows. If we proceed a little bit further in a southern direction, we can also spot 2 more goblins who are now patrolling this area. These 2 were standing guard in front of the spider pit earlier, but, and this is a crucial bit of information, once Dror Ragzlin is attacked, the entire goblin camp turns hostile, even if there are no further witnesses to the fight. As soon as that happens, these 2 leave their positions and move to this area, where we should hopefully have little trouble taking them out. We want to wait until they're both on the side of the room that's closest to us, then we enter turn-based mode as usual and start things off with a slashing flourish against the goblin that's further in the back. That gets us the kill immediately, and only Sylvia enters combat now. Let's have her follow things up with a bonus action offhand attack. That hits for 8 points of damage and brings us to Astarion. My apologies for the camera work here. For some reason, as excellent as this game is, it really does not like scenes spanning across multiple stories. Either way, we've got ourselves the kill and can now drop back down. At this point, it is very important that we put the Amulet of Misty Step onto Sylvia, before we then stealthily approach the two dead goblins to loot their bodies. This also brings us close to the Shattered Sanctum's main hall, and once more, as soon as we show ourselves in there, the assembled goblins in here will immediately jump into combat. This can be particularly problematic because Sazza is still among them, and for achievement purposes we absolutely need her to survive. In addition, we can also take note of Abdirak leaving the scene at this point. Once the entire goblin camp turns hostile, he will no longer stick around, and the same is true for the halfling trader Roa Moonglow and her associates. That is why you should take care of all the trading you can before attacking Dror Ragzlin. We did, and can now set things up for the next ambush. An invisible shovel is sent out to scout ahead, spotting 4 enemies, not counting Sazza. The rest of the party meanwhile takes a position in the shadows. For what comes next, it is also crucially important that Sylvia does not enter the initiative, while we want to make absolutely sure that Astarion here gets the highest initiative roll possible, so let's equip him with the Bow of Awareness for a +1 bonus. Then we send him out and begin things with a sneak attack against one of the nearby goblins, an attack that should hopefully gain us surprise. Alright, wonderful, not quite the kill, but we have surprise and that's the most important thing. And crucially, you can see it here, Sazza has not joined the fight, which I think is actually intended behavior, so that the game does not make it too difficult to both kill the goblin leaders and still get the Sazza-related achievement. Now, at this point, we jump back to Sylvia, who's got a very important task ahead of her. She will now Misty Step down into the spider pit. Unfortunately, there are no ladders leading down there.
Yes, my desire. Closer, my sweet. I will wrap you and bind you and bite you and eat you.
Right, so of course this is a proposal that we do not necessarily agree with, and thankfully we can persuade the two spiders to pick other targets instead. In this case, the goblins we're trying to take out anyway.
Delicious, I do not know, but cruel and sharp, yes. Bindable and wrappable and biteable, yes. You must open the door.
Now, not only does this successful persuasion attempt here earn us an inspiration for Astarion, it also gives us another interesting angle in the upcoming fight. However, and this is yet another crucial step in the plan, before we release the spiders, we need to take care of Sazza. Unfortunately, what tends to happen is that the spiders and Sazza tend to form their own little initiative order, and with Sazza only sporting 14 hit points, there is a good chance the spiders take her out for good. Not only that, but this also has a chance of turning Sazza an active combatant against the party, so I found that the best way to avoid all of that is to simply knock Sazza out prior to releasing the spiders. So let's toggle on non-lethal damage here for Lae'zel and hope that a single sword swing is enough. And that it is, lovely, and with that we have now ensured that Sazza will survive the encounter. That means Sylvia can now sneak up onto the locked gate to the spider pit, no lockpicking necessary. Using the lever on the wall, we can open the gate just like that. To get the spiders moving, however, we need to speak to both of them. And there we go, after initiating dialogue, the spider gets moving, but only this one. Let's speak to the other one then to make it move too.
You are safe. We will not bite one another.
And there we go, both spiders are moving out, and just a few moments later they are spotted by the goblins and added to the initiative. To be entirely honest, we probably won't need their help in this fight, and it would have perhaps been smarter to unleash them before attacking ourselves, but again that would have put Sazza at the risk of dying permanently. a fate only reserved for the other 4 goblins here. Astarion does good work finishing up his opening turn. Now we bring it over to Will, who from stealth can follow things up with a double Eldritch Blast. That leaves the one goblin by the stairs here standing with only a single hit point. Time to use Will's Flourish bonus action to hopefully remove that. Very importantly, this too only knocks the target out, despite non-lethal damage being toggled off, so that's something we'll need to take care of later. For now, we send Shovel up ahead and have a strike from invisibility once more. Unfortunately, that's a miss, but I think we can live with that. At this point, we switch over to Sylvia, who still has not entered the initiative yet, and because we have Surprise, I also don't think it's necessary to burn a Slashing Flourish here. Lovely, that's the kill, and with that we only have one single enemy left standing. At this point we can end our turns and bring things over to the spiders, who honestly will likely be a non-factor in this fight. I mostly just wanted to show you what you can do with them, but they can in fact be quite helpful. For example, if you eliminate the group in this room first, prior to taking on Dror Ragzlin, in that case the spiders will actually go after the hobgoblin and his minions, creating potentially useful advantages for your party. In our case, however, they did not deal so much as a single point of damage, and at this point, apart from Sazza and the goblins who left with Minthara, all goblins inside of the Shattered Sanctum are dead. The 2 spiders will now start roaming around as we begin a small looting spree, including the items left behind by Roa Moonglow, not exactly a grand treasure trove by any means, but they do include a Scroll of Revivify, arguably one of the best emergency items in the entire game. At this point, we can now also calmly walk through the previously guarded door. Of course, we want to make absolutely sure not to use a torch in here, but otherwise the room is safe to traverse despite the plethora of explosives, and we can quickly have Astarion pick open the chest. I would then also argue that in light of the difficulty of actually getting in here, the reward is perhaps a bit underwhelming. To kind of make up for that, perhaps there are a few useful weapons, arrows and other items in the chests nearby. We will at this point also collect every single fire, wine and gunpowder barrel in the room. Who knows, we might just have a use for them later down the line. Eventually then, we make our way back out into the Shattered Sanctum's main hall. Apart from the loot on the goblins, there is also the cultist brand and a potion of healing near Gut's throne. And of course, we also have not forgotten about the one goblin still unconscious. Finally then, we pick up the last bit of loot, at least from the goblins in this group. Don't forget though that we also still have the 2 torturers left here, who we couldn't loot previously because Abdirak was watching. With Abdirak no longer present, we can also help ourselves to a few extra items in the room, most notably a healing potion and a vial of basic poison. We also want to briefly return to the spider pit. First of all, there is a bone cap mushroom growing right beside the gate here, and a skeleton a few steps further has some valuables on it. Finally then, we return to Dror Ragzlin's throne room area. Once more, we climb the ladder to get onto the high ground, a perfect vantage point onto the 2 spiders down below. You may have seen this coming already. Of course, we will not pass up the chance for some extra experience points. Sylvia even manages to stay undetected despite hitting twice, so we quickly launch a second volley for the kill, which adds Sylvia to the initiative. Lae'zel is already in it. And Lae'zel is also the one who can now open things up against the larger spider, worth 41 hit points. Since we're not using any of her Battle Master maneuvers, she will likely not get the kill here with 2 regular hits, and indeed she doesn't, but we still have Astarion who's just itching to land the final blow. And there we are. At this point, we have officially defeated every last hostile within the Shattered Sanctum. And since these spiders do not have any loot on them, we can now move out to take care of the last thing still left on our to-do list. Because while we kept ourselves busy decimating every last goblin in here, poor druid Halsin has been waiting patiently inside the walk pens. and I think it's time to inform him of recent developments.
The ringleaders have to die. The very natural order of things is in danger, thanks to them.
Now, at this point, we could ask him and gather a substantial amount of information about the Moonrise Towers. However, not only does that feel a bit out of place, it also removes the option to tell him about Minthara moving on the Grove, so let's choose to do that instead.
Hurry then, I will meet you there. May Sylvanus guide us.
Halsin turns back into a rat and runs for the Grove, and with Lae'zel picking up one last firewine barrel here, I think we have reached a good point to end the episode. It may disappoint you to hear that no matter how many goblins we killed over the course of the last few episodes, the raid on the Druid Grove will always play out the exact same. However, we have earned ourselves a few juicy experience points and unlocked several achievements, not to mention that we're in for one hell of a challenge in the next episode, as we are looking to defend the Druid Grove without suffering a single casualty to our Druid and Tiefling allies. So, I hope you're looking forward to that. In the meantime, I also hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, then I would be very happy if you could leave a thumbs up. If you like what I'm doing and want to support me and my channel further, then you can of course also go ahead and subscribe to stay up to date, grab some merch over on shop.petecomplete.com, or become a channel member or Patreon supporter. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.